Right now on 23.5, America's bravest hotshots putting their lives on the line to fight the deadly wildfires that are sparking up all too often in our drought-stricken West. One story stands out. Tragically, a group losing their lives in a sudden shifting flame. The 19 firefighters of the Yarnell Hill Fire. We will talk with the author of a new book on that tragic event. And forget about surfers who are in the search of an endless summer. We met one guy who is amped for the endless winter. We're talking Chris Burkert. Stoked for the iciest waves on the planet, plus 30 million tons of plastic tossed out in this country every year, and a lot of it ending up in our oceans. So let's meet a woman who turns this beachfront blight into art. All right now on 23.5. They are called hotshots. They are elite firefighters, the first line of defense, battling raging wildfires, and sometimes they're the only line of defense. June 28, 2013, one of the darkest days in hotshot history. This is the Yarnell Hill Fire. 19 firefighters overrun by flames in the hills outside of Prescott, Arizona. All of these men losing their lives. A tragedy that still has questions lingering today. Author Fernanda Santos takes a look with her new book, The Fire Line. This fire really blew up quickly, and part of it was weather related.
Right.
There was a series of storms that was just off to
northeast. They come from the northeast. The storm had hooked the flames and turned them around, so the fire that was going north started coming in the opposite direction.
To surround them.
Exactly.
Basically.
Exactly.
Wind shifted.
So they are at the top of a mountain. This was a fire run by people they knew very, very well. Some of them were fire officials, fire people who trained them to become good firefighters. And I think that they were asked twice to come down the mountain to help in the town, the little town of Yarnell down there. So that, I'm sure, was something that influenced that decision.
They might have stayed in their head, right.
Right, and you know, I believe they knew the fire was coming their way because they had the survivor, a lookout, who was about a mile, 2 miles away on another mountain and saw the flames come and warned them and got out very safely, got a ride from somebody, got out of the wild, and the 19 guys stayed back there. And it's easy for us, you know, to Monday morning quarterback what happened, look back and pick apart all the decisions they made. But these were not inexperienced, you know, guys who had never been in fire. I mean, so they knew, presumably knew very well what they were doing and had gotten out of hairy situations before. So unfortunately that day, when they made that decision, I believe thinking they could make it, you know, things didn't work out the way they had planned. So the last radio communication that we have from that scene, you can still hear the chainsaws buzzing in the background.
Okay, I'm here with Raid Mountain Hotshots. Our escape route has been cut off. We are preparing a deployment site, and we are burning out around ourselves in the brush. And I'll give you a call when we are under the shelters.
So these guys were trying to clear as much brush as they could to create a safety zone, a place that had no vegetation, no fuel, as they call it, to burn, so that they could deploy their shelter and give themselves a chance of surviving. A shelter is a last resort. If you have to deploy a shelter, you know that something didn't go as you had planned, but it gives you a protection against heat, not direct flame contact. But they didn't have another option at that time, so that's what they had to do. It's a very risky job, but whenever they make a decision, they think it's the best decision they can make at that moment. So there was a lot of preoccupation among reporters about who gave the order for the crew to leave an area the fire had already burned, go down a canyon that was full of vegetation that had not yet burned, towards a town that the fire was threatening. And I thought, if they went down, it's because they agreed it was the right thing to do. So what really intrigued me was the fact that they all stayed together. None of them ran, none of them decided to take off and see if they could make it to the ranch on their own. None of them, you know, dropped their backpack in one end and was found far away from the crew. They were all within a space of about 20 feet by 30 feet. And to me, there were many things implied in that last stand against fire, against flames. And I wanted to understand why.
Check one. Todd, that you? Yeah, go ahead, Chris. Yeah, Todd, on scene. 18, confirmed. Okay, I copy. And let's go ahead and obviously secure the area, and we'll go from there.
You describe visiting the scene and seeing where they were found, and they were all kind of found tightly together. Tell me why that struck you.
You know, it sounds a little, it was a very personal, emotional moment for me when I got to the site where they had deployed.
And by that you meant
the site where they took out their shelters,
put it over them,
and
then laid down for the fire.
Exactly. When I got there, what I saw was not so much the desperation and the sadness of those last moments. What I saw was a message of unity and teamwork and loyalty. It was one of those things that I felt, who are these people who are ready to lay down with their brothers and wait for a fire to come over and hope that if they survive, they're all going to survive together? And to me, that was a much bigger story than the story of a fire. It was a story about human connection, about interaction, about believing in one another.
Bonding, really.
Right. And these guys all of a sudden showed me that, you know what, nothing we do is done alone. And there's teamwork here, and there's loyalty, and there's bonding, there's brotherhood, there's friendship. And this, to me, is the enduring message of this fire.
Courage lies in every heart, and the expectation is that one day it will be summoned. And I know, we know, all of them were heroes long before, as I said, we knew them.
You spent a lot of times with their families, and I can only imagine how emotional it was for the families, of course, but also for you. Tell me a little bit about the families of people who support their husband or wife to be a hotshot.
You know, you kind of have to be a very independent person to. In fact, I say in the book that divorce is a common ending for hotshot love stories, because your husband or wife will usually leave home around mid-April in the West, go out, fight fire, may come home, you know, here and there, pop in for a couple of days, and then be out again, and not come back until mid-October. You will be sometimes hearing from him or from her when they're out on the fire line, sometimes not, because they may be very busy, they may be in an area that doesn't have cell phone reception. In fact, Eric Marsh, the superintendent of the Granite Mountain Hotshots, got a satellite phone so that he could call his wife, and his men, the members of the crew, they were all men, could call home as well. One of the guys, Travis Turbyfield, had 2 little girls at home. Many of them had children, and he had a copy of Goodnight Moon in his backpack. And he would call home at night and read the book before his daughters went to sleep. Those were real people, you know, people like I could see myself and my husband in those scenes. And, you know, the wives that I met, were pretty used to that. I mean, some of them struggled more than others, but they understood that comes with the territory. You married somebody who does this job, you have to accept that, because loving that person comes with loving the job they do.
Up next, what can we do so this never happens again?
There is a proposal in the very early stages in Congress right now, and it's important because that can make a difference between somebody living and dying.